Okay.
Welcome
Back.
Welcome back. We're sorry for the hiatus, but Amy was still traveling and I was having an existential crisis. But we Gucci.
Yep, we're back.
We back. But yeah, we totally didn't celebrate that last episode was episode 20, and that's a bit of a milestone.
It is.
So this is 21, legal.
Finally legal.
Finally legal.
What's our first drink gonna be?
Mine was a lemon drop. What was your
that's
first
classy
drink?
Margarita.
See, but that's like classic. Classy.
Yep.
I love it. So today, Amy and I are having a bit of a moment in our lives where we are trying to figure out what is the purpose.
What's up?
What is up? I love you, but don't cross me though. So we decided to pick kind of several topics that we feel like are sort of related for this week around like purpose of the universe, like greater universal connectedness and like energetic power and things like that. So I'm going to stop talking and Amy's going to take it away.
Okay. Yeah. So I only got to one of the things that we decided we wanted to talk about because, like Olivia said, I think both of our states of mind have been interesting, to say the least, in this last little time period. And so, this topic is fitting, and I just felt like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I think that the theme for today is that all of these topics are fuel for your own existential crisis. So
perfect. Yeah, I've got some pretty fucked up ones too.
Yep. Yeah.
Great.
So the one that I'm going to talk about today is so-called glitches in the matrix. So glitches in the matrix are first-hand accounts of things happening, usually just little things that you can't explain. So, like, for example, you fill a cup with water and then turn around and see that the cup is empty. Or, like, you put something somewhere and then it shows up somewhere else. Little things like that that are really freaky, but harmless, I guess, but you just can't understand why. So anyway, to start though, I want to talk about like the theory behind glitches in the matrix, because as you can tell by that wording, it implies that our quote unquote reality is like a computer simulation that can have glitches like any of our other technology, which yikes. So
technology. We have to post that. Okay, there's this really funny YouTube clip. And I'm not even going to explain what it is, but it's hilarious. And we watched it over and over again at university and just died laughing. So, glitch in the matrix, technology, gasp, terrifying.
I can't even remember like if that's part of a bigger video or if it was just a clip that is.
It was like a news clip. Like it was like people like this just in, people terrified of technology. And a guy jumps out with a sign at this lady on the street that says technology, and she obviously is fucking scared because he lunges at her.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch that again.
Oh god, same.
Okay. Yeah, so scary. All right, so simulation theory is what it's called, and it was proposed in 2003 by someone named Nick Bostrom in a paper that he called "Are We Living in a Computer Simulation?" And in this paper, he presents 3 propositions and argues that one of them has to be true. And one of those propositions is, quote, "We are almost certainly living in a computer simulation." So, to me, the thought of that is spookier than anything we've ever
Oh,
talked about on this
+1.
podcast.
That makes
Yeah.
me want to throw up. That
Yeah.
make like I'm like salivating because I'm like, oh, I could throw up.
Yeah. It's like my mind just shuts down. When I
Yeah.
try to think about this too in depth, I just feel like I can't. There's like a
Yeah.
wall up. So, yeah. But that article also was behind a paywall, so I couldn't read the whole thing
Oh.
anyway.
Hmm.
So I just have little synopses of it.
Okay.
So the article that I used is from Scientific American, and it was in 2020. And it was nice because it was A, understandable, and B,
Hmm.
made it more palatable
Yeah.
to absorb that information. So to make the simple parts of it even simpler, it
Hmm.
summarizes some work that David Kipping, who is an astronomer, did to understand the simulation argument.
Hmm.
And so he boils it down to being basically there are two possibilities that either one, we are living in a simulation that is housed within a supercomputer that was created by some advanced society that has infinite computing power. Or
Okay.
two, we are what they call base reality, which is an existence that is not simulated. So those are our
Okay.
options.
So
And
base
I'll
reality is like
spare,
what we generally believe, right?
yes,
Like we live reality. I
yes,
think. I mean, I think.
yep, yes, that's right.
Okay, sorry.
So
Continue. I'm already like shaking.
I know, I know.
I
I
don't like
think,
it.
yeah, what base reality would be is, like you said, what we think we're living right now.
Like
It's,
we're the advanced society with the
yes,
computing power. Okay.
yes, I think
And we
potentially.
created Sims.
Yes.
Like, isn't this like okay? Just sorry to interrupt, but like,
No.
doesn't it feel a little bit like self-important? Like we're placing a
Mm-hmm.
lot of self-importance on ourselves because we're basically saying that we're Sims.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so meta.
Yeah.
I hate that word now has dual meaning, but
Uh-huh.
that's just so that just feels so like well of course if they were aliens they'd look like humanoid and it's like why
Why? Yeah.
that's so dumb that's
Mm-hmm.
just because that's what we know like that's this is not necessarily evolutionarily the best thing you know like
Yeah.
super vulnerable meat sacks like not lit
Yeah, we're pretty delicate, actually.
yeah
So,
anyway sorry
yeah.
please continue
No, it's, yeah. It's bizarre and mind bending. So,
yeah
okay. Yeah, base reality, that's where we are,
hmm
presumably.
hmm
um, but anyway, his analysis found that the odds are 50-50 of whether we're
fuck
living in a simulation or whether we're in base reality.
and he's an astronomer.
Yes. So
Fuck.
I think so. I watched a little video with Neil
Okay.
deGrasse Tyson talking
Okay.
about this, and he was saying that he finds comfort in that because
Mm.
I guess in the original article about simulation theory, he presents it as if it's like fact,
Oh, okay.
that we are in a simulation. And then when you think of life that way, it's like, why does anything matter? Why wouldn't
Yeah.
I do whatever I want?
And why does anything
It's,
happen?
yeah, exactly. And
Like is it art like is it AI? Is it like machine learning where we're like kind of making our own reality still? Like free will? How does that factor in? That's just
right.
so
Yeah.
hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, I know. And no one really can explain any of this, obviously.
No, of course.
So it's just bizarre. And so thankfully, with this 50-50 idea, I guess it leans slightly in favor of us in our current definition of humanity being the base reality.
Mm-hmm.
But he goes on to say that if we are ever able to create a simulation that has conscious beings inside it, then we almost certainly are not real, which would put us in a simulation that could potentially be in a chain of an
Of
unknown number of
simulations.
simulations. Yeah. So,
So I'm just trying to be objective and not emotional about it.
mm-hmm.
I kind of do get it, like at least where the like, because my thing was like, who was the first person to think of that? Like, are you okay? But no is the answer. But also, I do kind of get it because I mean, there are literally people who don't believe in the Big Bang, and it's like, okay, but like I believe in the Big Bang for lack of a better explanation, and because I believe in science,
Yeah.
but like. As opposed to like creationism, Adam and Eve. Like, sorry, but no.
Yeah.
To me, that's my that's my opinion. But I do kind of see how it's like, well, that actually would explain it if we started from quote unquote nothing because we weren't started yet.
Right.
But then that doesn't explain like dinosaurs. Like,
no.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Why? Like, oh, they just like were like, oh, let's put fossils in the ground and make them think that there's been existence long before they ever walked the planet. Like, what about the evolution of humankind? Like that, I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, I know. It's that question of who created the creator and why.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
It's an unanswerable thing, in my opinion. I mean, some people have strong beliefs, maybe because of their experiences, but I don't think that we will know. Maybe after we die, but even then, who knows?
Yeah, maybe not.
But yeah, also that if we are in a simulation within a chain of simulations, that implies that all of the like civilizations, for lack of a better word, that exist in these simulations follow the same trajectory that leads them to then create this supercomputer to create another simulation.
Yeah, so we all mimic the base reality then.
Yeah, right. And then it's like, why? What's the point of creating a simulation of what you're already living?
Right.
And yeah,
I don't know, like lack of creativity.
I mean, yeah, and some people, like the theories I saw, I guess, were that maybe it's entertainment for these more advanced humans, like to watch like a video game, or a way for these future humans to relive their pasts, which then also makes me question, like, are we being controlled like a character?
Yeah. Or is time not functioning outside of in theory outside of the simulation the way it works in here?
Right.
In here. I hate that. Not so fucking much. I hate it.
Yeah. I don't like that either at all. I guess it doesn't, like, if that is true, it's not gonna, well, I guess unless I find out as a fact that that is true, just thinking about it doesn't change my perception of reality or my life, but I certainly don't like thinking about that.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like a pretty grounded person.
Yeah.
And that just like upends everything. So
well, and I mean, like for me, I just am getting hung up on like the details. Like at a high level, hypothetically, okay, fine. Like there's some master creator or even a creator above that and above that and above that, and they all follow the same trajectory. I have so many questions about like you said, like who created the creator and why, and then when did it start? How? What are the differences between the base and all of the iterations that come thereafter? But I'm thinking about our reality, whether it's a simulation or it's the base. First of all,
let's get down to
it. Yeah, sorry, I'm just really about to go in. First of all, I understand the argument that, like, if we are able to create a supercomputer that creates conscious beings within it, then that almost like confirms that we probably are a simulation. But then doesn't it also confirm that we could be the base reality if we've conceptualized this and we're the first to conceptualize it based on no factual evidence? Maybe the study of like additional dimensions, but then that could go so many different ways. That's not necessarily in favor of a simulation exclusively. That's in favor of a ton of other stuff, of astral projection, which I'm going to talk about, and like past lives and like afterlife experience and all of that. Like that, I don't know. That feels really like, I feel like I like literally will pay for the paper. I want to like read this original article because I feel kind of annoyed. Like I'm annoyed.
I know. No, I get that. Yeah. And it could also be that like me talking about this is as if I read like whatever simulation theory for dummies and then I'm teaching it like a class.
No, but I don't think you're teaching it poorly. I honestly don't know much about it beyond people jokingly being like, we're living in a simulation. And I'm always like, no, we're not. Like, we're hopefully not Sims. You know? But big yikes, man. Big yikes.
Yeah. But this article, the Scientific American one, also has a lot more to it, but it was all about like quantum physics and a quantum computer that could help us like actually figure out if this is possible. And I glazed over. So,
I mean, I wouldn't get it even if I read
it. That might be some of the missing details in there.
Okay.
I don't know. But yeah. There's also a movie, I suppose it's like a documentary because they interview people that are like staunchly believe in this theory. It's called, I think it's just called A Glitch in the Matrix. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It came out somewhat recently.
It's The Matrix with Keanu Reeves.
Have you heard of it? There's this movie called The Matrix.
There's this movie, it's called The Matrix. I don't know, it's pretty underground. You probably haven't heard of it.
Yep. Oh, classic.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's called A Glitch in the Matrix. I don't know. Okay. It says you can stream it somewhere. I didn't look.
I'm going to watch it. I'm really going to barf everywhere, but I'm going to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like this article I saw is an interview with the director, producer, and the people that he mentions in this interview. Like, there's even now something called the Matrix defense as like a subsect of the insanity defense. Because if somebody kills somebody thinking that they're in the Matrix, they can use that as a plea to be.
Isn't like, that just reason the of insanity defense? Yeah, still?
Basically. But they call it the Matrix defense, and they.
Oh, you said it's a subset. Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and it's specifically about people who think that they're in some other reality, or that this isn't reality. I don't know.
I mean, but to your point, it's like, but it is our reality. So kind of, I don't know. I think with like faith, I guess, for lack of a better word, is it's like what's the purpose of it? It's to give people hope, like to give
Mm-hmm.
you purpose and to give you hope for, eternal life or something bigger than us or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And even atheists, I think, like, they have it. I know that faith has a, like, godly religious connotation, but I think in their own way have faith in that. I don't think it is, like, really upsetting to them that there's nothing. They're like, you're not going to care because there's nothing. It's not like your soul floating in nothingness in the
Mm-hmm.
void. It's like
There's just nothing.
it's
Yeah.
just nothing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're engulfed by it and it's done. So I don't know. I kind of feel like it's kind of brings you back to, like, is there life after death? Like,
Yeah.
maybe, and
Uh-huh.
maybe not. And, like, does it matter? Like,
Yeah.
whatever gives you hope, what makes you want to wake up in the morning and, like, feel good about trying to live a life as a good person and, like, helping others and whatever. But even still, I talk a big game, but that makes me want to die.
I know, but I know what you're saying. It's yeah, none of this, maybe none of this will matter in the end.
Yeah.
But then again, kind of like what we were just talking about and what we said earlier, some people can take it too far
Mhm.
and feel like if I'm in a simulation, I have no responsibility
I'm
over my own
invincible.
life.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I don't know. I was going to say something about faith with that, but maybe I won't. I won't go into that part. But
Mm.
yeah, it's very interesting. So let's move out of that though.
Okay.
That's like the big theory behind it.
Okay.
But now these are
Foundation. Got
just,
it.
yeah, these are little stories from people.
Oh, yes.
I imagine that the original source is Reddit, but I found these on Thought Catalog.
Mm, okay.
So this article, I suppose, has over 100 stories from people.
Whoa.
So that's kind of what took me so long to put this
Yeah.
together. And I only have 7 because I just tried to find ones that, like, a lot of them were similar.
Yeah.
So I just tried to find ones that were unique in their own
Mm-hmm.
sort of section of these things that can
Mm-hmm.
happen. So, first one. I took a hard news, soft news journalism class in college where one of the assignments was to write an obituary for one of my grandparents. The professor told us to write it on a deceased grandparent, but if all of your grandparents were still alive, we had to choose one.
Oh,
Which is
God.
weird. Weird.
Yeah. You're like, kill one off in the imaginary world.
Yeah, I
Shit.
hate it. But so they go on to say all of my grandparents were alive. I procrastinated the assignment until the night before it was due because it seemed like a dumb assignment. So I was looking for an easy grandparent to write about. I gave my mom a call and asked her for some basic biographical information about my maternal grandfather, who is still alive. As we were talking about my grandpa's career, my mom couldn't recall the name of one of the companies he worked at. She lectured me about waiting until the last minute to write the assignment because it was late, about 10:30 p.m. my grandpa's time. However, she said she would give him a call to see if he was still awake and would be able to answer that question since my assignment was due the following morning. When my mom called my grandpa answered the phone in a panic. My grandma frantically explained that the paramedics had just arrived and were
No.
performing CPR on my grandpa because he had stopped breathing and passed out. My mom was able to stay on the phone with my grandma until they took my grandpa to the hospital where he was declared dead. Yeah. In the time my mom and I had been talking on the phone about my grandpa's obituary, quote unquote, he was dying, out of the blue at that. He had been otherwise healthy considering his age. We ended up using the obituary I wrote for that writing assignment as his
Oh.
actual obituary.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My
That
anxiety is through the roof. That's like, do you ever get in that? I mean, I think this is like maybe an OCD thing, but whereas, like, the, like, step on a crack and break your mother's back kind of thing. And then you get in your head about it, like, could I actually actualize that by believing it? And then you kind of can't stop thinking about it. Shit, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably just an awful coincidence, but what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm swearing a lot this episode. I'm so sorry.
It's warranted. Because
oh my God.
We've talked about that a little bit before, I think, of like, why mess with these things?
Yeah.
Putting something out there, you never know what is going to happen. And that assignment is awful.
Yeah, that's. I would just say, like, make someone up.
Yeah,
like, make someone up.
Yeah, right. But poor family. That's awful. But interesting.
The mom must have just been like, "What horrified. Did you do? Are you a witch? Yeah. What is happening?"
Oh God, yeah. How life-changing.
Oh my God.
Okay. Now here's another one. So this one says, I used to love drawing portraits when I was younger, but I wasn't very good at it, so I threw them away a lot of the time. But one day, I drew one that I was really, really proud of, so I kept it. About a week later, we had a new girl start in our class, and I thought she looked super familiar. And a few days into the week, I realized that it was because she was the girl I had drawn. I went home and found the drawing, and sure enough, they were nearly identical. It freaked me out, and I've felt weird about drawing portraits of nobody, quote unquote, ever since. Weird.
Oh. Okay, the thing is, like, I can't draw to save my life. Like, I can draw stick figures, and it ends there. So the even just the concept of drawing a face that I've never seen before, like, you know how they say you can't dream a face you've never seen before?
I had the exact same journey as your
plan. Like, oh my God. Such a glitch in the Matrix. What the hell?
Right. I know. So, yikes. Okay. Next one. We'll just keep them back to back. Just keep going.
Deeper down the rabbit hole. I'm unraveling over here.
Okay, number 3. When I was about 15, I was eating some cereal and accidentally dropped my spoon onto the kitchen floor. I watched the spoon fall. As it hit the floor, it vanished into thin air. I was shocked. I thought surely my eyes were playing tricks on me. It must have just bounced away and gone out of sight or something. I spent 30 minutes searching the kitchen for that spoon. I was freaked out. I tried to think of every possible place it could have gone. There weren't many places it could have ended up, and I never found it.
No.
Yeah, it's just like throw my hands up. I don't know. And that reminds me of like all the earring backs I've lost, or like bobby pins that you never find.
No. Even once you've cleaned out an entire room, all the furniture's out, and you're like, where is that thing? There are 3 things. Well, a couple were lost in one of the 3 was something that I must have gotten lost in a move, either from college to home or from apartment to apartment or whatever. But it was this piece of audio equipment that my dad had given me, and he was like, "Are you sure you can't find it?" Like, he had asked me so many times, and I had like torn everything apart. Like, remember packing it up, and then just, I don't know where it went. I don't remember if I unpacked it. Maybe I did. Maybe it got thrown in with some other stuff and, you know, got thrown out or whatever, but it made me freaking crazy.
Yeah.
But there were 2 things recently, and they were when I moved here to Toronto. One was a pack of birth control, like medication, and one was a vape, like a weed, like vape pen. And they both are in the same little bag that's like a fanny pack bag that I keep within a larger bag, both zipped all the time.
Right.
And it was like the Gremlins. Like, I was just like, what? Like, and I recall, and to be fair, I usually would take my birth control when I was also using the vape pen. So I was probably high, but I either put my vape pen back into that bag. It goes in the same pocket. My birth control goes in the same pocket in that little bag every single day because I can't fucking lose that.
Yeah.
So I remember getting up and it was sitting on this chair right next to me, my bag within the bag. I remember unzipping the big bag, going into the little bag, taking out my birth control, grabbing the vape pen, hitting it, putting both back, re-zipping everything, and going back to bed. I then went about the next day, and it was when I got home again, I put my bag back down, I opened it up when my little alarm reminder went off, and they were both gone.
Yeah. Bizarre.
And the only other place I put my vape pen, birth control never moves. The only other place I put my vape pen is my bedside table. And I had to go buy a new one. Like I tore my apartment apart. I was like, I must have like put it in the fridge or like just done something really weird. I dumped out the garbage. Like I was like, maybe I just wasn't thinking, or I was holding two things and meant to throw one out and meant to put one away, whatever. But it haunts me. Like, it neither ever showed up again.
Yeah.
I never saw either again.
Oh, God. Would it be better if you found them? Or...
Yes.
Okay.
It would be better. Because then I could just say, I just misplaced it. I was just I was being mindless, was thinking about something else, doing 10 things at once as per usual. And I just, whatever, it just, I put it somewhere weird, but it turned up. Okay. Because that's happened to me before. Like my sunglasses, I have like nice Ray-Ban like aviators, and this is weird. They had managed to drop from like on top of my jewelry box through this like grate in my closet in Austin into like between my clothes and jackets into my boot slippers. And I had torn my closet apart looking for that. And then one day I shoved my foot into that fucking boot slipper and I was like, what the hell is that? And then I was like, oh my God, my Ray-Bans. So that's what I was expecting with the vape pen. I was like, oh my God, like it's somewhere. But no, it's not. It's nowhere.
Oh God, maybe when you move.
It's gone. Prayer hands all the way up for that. Like that would be like, wow, okay, I can rest easy knowing we don't live in a simulation.
Yeah.
That for me, evidence enough.
No glitch in the Matrix.
No glitch in the Matrix.
I feel like my blood pressure is really high.
I know.
About these things. I feel like I sound unhinged.
No, you don't. You don't. I know. I feel kind of manic thinking about this. Jesus.
I was thinking like people are gonna think I'm having some sort of episode.
Okay, rest assured, my topics kind of provide an alternate like explanation for some of this stuff. Okay. So we'll get there.
All right. Okay. So here we go. Number 4 is a short little one, but very spooky. So a few nights back, I was wide awake in the guest bedroom at my place, and I heard footsteps and then my wife say, "Hey," gently at the door. It seemed weird, so I got up to see what she wanted, and she was fast asleep in bed. So...
She's astral projecting. Yeah. I'm just going to call it right now. We're gonna get to that, but I think that's what that is.
All right. Hopefully. I mean,
please God.
Explanation.
He didn't see her. He just doesn't say that he saw her. He just heard her.
He says heard and
footsteps.
Then heard my wife say "hey" at the door.
Okay.
So he didn't see anyone.
Interesting. Okay. I like that. That's good.
Okay.
We like that.
Okay. Now this one's kind of funny. So this is one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. When my now ex-boyfriend and I had just gotten together, I went out and bought him some new shirts. We had just fallen in love, and I saw a shirt that said "Love Life" on it in big, red, bold letters. The shirt was all white with only the words on the front. It was a little inside joke between us because we would use that phrase to describe our life, and we named our joint business Love Life. He really loved it and wore it a lot before it sat in the closet for a couple of years. Well, a couple of years go by, and let's just say Love Life was a horrible definition of our relationship. He was horrible. Anyway, I'm cleaning out the closets, getting rid of old clothes, and there's the shirt. I pull it out, and the shirt now reads Low Life. The exact same way it looked before, but it says Low Life. I immediately ask him if he remembers the shirt and what it said, and he tells me Love Life. Well, as soon as I show him the shirt, he flips out the same way I did. Both of us know that the shirt never said Low Life. Why would I buy a shirt that said that for my boyfriend? It's like I flipped dimensions into the reality where my ex-boyfriend was a complete abusive douche, and it showed up in the shirt.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's a funny one.
That is funny, but also that's really freaky.
I know, so weird.
I feel like I've had experiences kind of like that, but they weren't like enough of like core memories for me to be certain, like memory is so fickle.
Yeah.
But especially if it wasn't like worn out or anything like that.
Looked the same.
That's so wild.
That's like the blue, is it blue or gold? That dress.
Yes, that dress. Yeah. Yeah. Blue and black or white and gold. Once for me, I could get my brain to see it both ways, and then I could flip back and forth, but it took me a long time to see the white and gold.
Yeah, same. I think I've only seen the white and gold one time.
Mm-hmm.
But then in those other ones, I can't remember the words right now, for the ones that you listen to, and people hear different things. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking one of those words, you can hear it, and then if you think the other, you can hear that.
You can hear it.
So it's interesting. But, yeah. Okay, next one. There was one morning before school when I randomly thought, I haven't heard Hey Ya in a long time. It's a good song though. Just a meaningless whatever while brushing my teeth. I arrive at school and all of my friends have Hey Ya stuck in their heads. They were humming it all day, and when I asked them about it, they said they thought about it that morning. None of us had heard the song recently enough at all to be reminded about it.
Whoa.
Just some weird joint thought.
That reminds me of, though, when, like, that's one of those things where I think, like, energy, there's, like, an energy, and, like, an energy to the universe, too, that, like, we can't see or hear. But, when, like, you and I have experienced this a lot, where we both start singing the same thing at the same time, it's almost like there's a rhythm to the universe.
Yeah.
That you, like, there's a tempo kind of to the universe, and the timing's the same. Jordan and I, my brother and I do that all the time. Like, that happens a lot. And I always think that's like some weird
connection,
energetic, like, like not even connection to one another, but like that the universe has like patterns in it that we're like, oh, that's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But it's all subconscious.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And the people that you're close to, it's no surprise that they would interpret those patterns the same way.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, last one I saved because we've had this happen. That it says, I was going to lunch with 2 coworkers. We were discussing another coworker. One coworker made an assessment of the coworker we were discussing, and I agreed with him. He looked at me and said, I didn't say anything. I was thinking it. And the other coworker there agreed that he never said it.
Oh, so there was a witness. That, I think that part's important, that there's a witness, because it's easy to, like, maybe I did say it aloud and I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
What? Where's Kayla? Oh, she's with Cody.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, same exact thing.
Oh my God.
Which, we've told that before, But
that is wild.
yeah, that's the last one for me.
Okay. Buckle
I
up,
talked for
babies.
so long. God.
No, that was, I'm like, this is a really fascinating one to me. Like, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I could talk about this for days.
Yeah, same.
So mine are kind of similar, kind of different. I think I sort of wish, like, so mine are going to talk about, I'm going to talk about like afterlife and a little bit of past life experiences,
Hmm.
but also astral projection. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on astral projection because I just think there's so many like really interesting stories about the afterlife stuff, but I think it's worth too, like, recognizing that excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. I'm just gonna leave that in.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth too recognizing that, like, a lot of these, the idea of like a simulation, for example, that it doesn't necessarily have to be a hierarchy, that it could be parallel tracks. You know what I mean? That it's not a creator making the next simulation that makes the next, that makes the next, that like
Mm-hmm.
an alternative explanation could be that we're running parallel to other realities,
Right.
base or not. Like, maybe there isn't a base. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a very human concept, that there's
Mm-hmm.
like a baseline and then things evolve from there. Like, because
Yeah.
that's been our evolutionary
Experience.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily think it's that. Like, what if the
Mm-hmm.
Big Bang created multiple different realities and dimensions? Like, that is so feasible, so feasible.
Yeah.
And with like quantum physics and all of that, I think that's something that, well, actually, I've read that that's something that a lot of like quantum physicists are exploring, of like, how can we prove that there are dimensions with realities within them, basically.
Right.
And what do like crossovers mean? So I think with that comes a lot of potential in terms of like afterlife versus like being born again, and past lives, and even like reincarnation as kind of a part of that, not necessarily in a linear way, but where you could relive the same years or time in a different context. Like, it's just endless.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try and keep it a little more grounded than that. But I just
Okay.
wanted to kind of like segue with that, because I think that gives me more hope than like, we're in a computer simulation.
Yeah.
We're Sims,
Yeah,
basically.
we are
And
Sims.
I hate that.
Yeah.
So I'll start with a couple of like afterlife, past life things that are kind of specific to not me, but someone I know. So we have a close family friend who they have a daughter and a son, and the son, when he was very young, he was riding his bike, and I don't know the exact details of it, but basically he rode into the street and was hit by a car and was like thrown up in the air, like some significant distance, like feet in the air. And one of the parents, or both of the parents, witnessed it, like saw him fly up in the air, like at least 10 feet, and saw him fall to the ground. And I want to say he was like 5 at this time. Maybe he was younger. Maybe he was like 3 or 4. He did not have a scratch on him. Not a scratch.
That's weird.
And he talks about, and I think it's worth like talking about this separately, but I wanted to include this story. But he said that like someone caught him and put him down, like an angel.
Yeah.
At least that's how his parents perceived it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So the same kid, when he was little, like an infant, and like just talking, like 1.5, 2 probably, he would reference his other family.
Oh God.
Like his old family. Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mixing this up with another story, he had a sister who died, who was like maybe hit by a car, or like the parent maybe ran her over in the car. It's like a very sad story that like it seems very unlikely that an infant would make that up.
Yeah.
Or like a toddler, maybe not an infant, a toddler would make that up. But yeah, he would like talk about like, oh yeah, my other mom, like my old mom from before. And she'd be like, come again?
What?
Here's your oatmeal, psycho.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, so that was just kind of interesting. So I wanted to bring that up.
Wow.
Another kind of like semi-related topic is like the idea of deja vu. Some people think that that in and of itself is a glitch in the matrix, and not specific to the simulation theory, but just to the idea that like there are other realities, whether it's base versus simulations or parallel, whatever. And there are a lot of people who like experience this regularly, and there's someone actually on Reddit kind of explained, at least like on a very basic level, like why that sensation happens. But I thought I'd share. I have a couple that kind of come up for me a lot. One is when like I'm talking to somebody and someone says, oh, well, so and so like be there, or they go, and I'm like, no, they won't be able to make it in time. And there's something about that, but specific to whatever scenario it is, that like really trips me up.
Interesting.
There's also something about an uncle and something about Sundays. Like it's in a specific scenario. It's not just like bringing either of those terms up or even together necessarily triggers it, but there are things that like, it's like murky kind of on the edges of my consciousness that I'm like, oh, that like triggers
familiar,
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of brought me, before I go into some of the Reddit things, like brought me to the idea around like energies to different concepts and words. So like in my mind, Thursday and the number 7 are the same. And I can't explain why. I literally can't explain why. And there's so many things like that. Like, and there's actually kind of a trend, I think, on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, that people say that, like, why is it that like pizza and Friday have the same energy? Like, why is that the same energy? But like burritos and Friday don't.
Yeah.
Like I've eaten so many burritos on a Friday. Like that's a treat ass food, but it's not, that's not a Friday.
Right.
Energy.
Or like, why is my math folder always red and my geography always green or whatever?
I was going to say green. It's got to be green.
It's obviously like, green.
It's obviously green.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, though? It's weird things like that. And it's like, where does that come from? And the fact that a lot of people will agree on them. That's what's weird to me. It's like, okay, it's got like a weird energy.
Yeah.
So one of the things on Reddit that I found to be really interesting, and I didn't know this, people who are concussed can have a sensation of deja vu for like hours or even days at a time.
God.
Which I would be so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And someone was trying to explain, because there were a bunch of people like talking about deja vu in this thread, and there are a lot of them are like, yeah, when I was concussed, when I hit my head really hard, like, and someone explained that it happens when your short-term memory and your long-term memory get like crossed, basically. Like they get confused with one another, meaning that the memory is immediately accessed as if it were already there. So you feel like you've seen it or heard it before. So according to your brain, you have seen or heard it before, because your short-term memory gets like immediately registered as long-term, and then it gets suddenly pulled forward again.
Interesting.
So it's a really weird concept. A little bit of a trigger warning for this next part. Going to go into some near-death experiences, and there are definitely some stories of suicide, just references to suicide. So if that makes you uncomfortable, I'd say skip ahead 5-10 minutes. There are quite a few of them. So one, I think is like kind of interesting, and this is just like a quick reference to suicide, but just around like near death and like emotional trauma and how your brain handles that. So hundreds of people attempt to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, I think every year, and very few survive, but there are survivors. I think there's actually a Netflix documentary that talks about the survivors, and they're interviewed. Most of the survivors, like those, I think actually all of the survivors, say that when they're falling, they immediately regret the decision. Like it's like, oh my God, how just seconds ago I was so sure, and now what am I doing? Like this is the worst decision I've ever made. The reason why, like the last thing you remember isn't like the impact. So like for people who do survive, they remember jumping, they remember falling, they don't remember impact. If you're in a car accident, similar. You remember driving, you remember swerving, you don't remember hitting the tree. And the reason for that is your brain is trying to forget something that leads to emotional trauma later. So it's literally your brain is like protecting you from processing it in real time or retrospectively because it's traumatic, it's traumatizing, which is why people have like repressed memories of like abuse and things like that. So I just thought that was really interesting. Just because I think it's kind of connected to all of this and a lot of the after or like near death experiences, or when people have actually died, like have been declared dead and then have been revived. So one of the things to consider in all of this is like the chemical side. So I wanted to just talk about that because near death experiences, like to the scientific community, are really puzzling, especially to psychologists. So your heart stops beating, like when you are declared dead, your heart stops beating, your brain registers no sign of activity if you're, hooked up to a machine monitoring that. Other vital signs indicate death. However, people report a continuation of consciousness, which is like completely like not explainable scientifically. Like there should be brain waves, like there should be activity. So in neurobiological terms, near-death experiences, they call them NDEs. So I'll call them that. That's from psychology. This is from Psychology Today. They've never really been fully explained. So various theories have been suggested, things like hallucinations caused by lack of oxygen, undetected brain activity during the period when the brain appears not to be functioning, a massive rush of endorphins, a psychological, quote, depersonalization in response to intense stress, so on and so forth. However, all of these theories can be basically just like completely swept aside based on the fact that, like, for example, oxygen deficiency would result in a chaotic hallucinatory experience associated with confusion, memory loss. But what people describe in their NDEs is really vivid. You're like more alert, more present than even in your waking moments, even sometimes. It's like completely like off the charts kind of like clarity. So it seems really unlikely that that low a level of brain activity that would be undetected by an EEG would actually result in something so vivid and intense that's just like not really scientifically possible. So another theory is related to psychedelic chemicals that are naturally produced by the brain, DMT, which is short for dimethyltryptamine. So it's natural. Obviously your brain produces it. It's similar to LSD or shrooms, magic mushrooms. And researchers believe that there's a theory that basically like that mass release, similar to like a mass release of endorphins, could create this kind of experience that people have in these like near-death experiences. What people they did a study that compared like people who take because they can recreate DMT like synthetically. I think I don't know if they like have a way for your brain to produce it. I don't really know how that works, but DMT and then also a placebo, and there are like very clear differences between the two. Significant increases in phenomenological features associated with the near-death experience following DMT administration compared to the placebo. So basically, like people seeing, there are like 16 items that they use on this like near-death experience scale within this study, and 9 items showed a high degree of crossover between just general near-death experiences and this study specifically. These included a quote, unearthly environment, a sense of peace, heightened senses, a feeling of harmony and unity, altered time perception, feelings of joy, bright lights, and so on. However, all 9 of these characteristics are generally associated with spiritual or mystical experiences rather than just NDEs, because like those things happen to people not experiencing a near-death experience. So it's very confusing. So it's kind of like correlation, causation, like there's just a big question mark on a lot of that. So I wanted to just like go into that in a little bit of detail because I think that's kind of important.
Yeah.
And there are obviously a ton of themes in what people see. There was something on, my mom told me, I think she came across it, I don't know, some video, but it was like interviewing a nurse or a doctor, like someone in the medical field who I think works specifically in palliative care. So like has seen many people at the end of their lives. And it's like, she said, like, you know, regardless of what there is after, whether there is anything after this life, like the experiences, there's a very common experience. Like people see loved ones who have passed in the room and are confused why their loved ones living can't see them there. And I know that was the case, like for my papa, my maternal grandfather, like he had that where he was like, oh, you know, there's so and so, and my granny's like,
Yeah.
hey, which is, I think, very comforting. But people like kind of zooming out and seeing their body from above or from the outside. There are a couple like specific stories that I'll get into in a second, but a lot of people see, and this was kind of listed on the NDE like list of things that pop up. A lot of people see bright light. A lot of people see nature. So like big fields of flowers, gardens.
That's nice.
That is nice. A lot of people see loved ones who come to them or like appear beside them as they're looking at their body or in these peaceful landscapes. Other people have like hellscapes of that they see. And most of them are like saved by a loved one, which is interesting, which makes me question like how much of this is being informed by how you view yourself as DMT is being released. So like how much is your conscious brain active in all of this?
Yeah.
Which we really can't answer. But I wonder too, you know, if you think about like taking a drug like ayahuasca or DMT, like you can give yourself a bad trip. You can have a bad trip and kind of like force that on yourself with anxiety, environment, all those things. So I don't know what part that plays. Some people see nothingness. Someone referred to it as like the big empty, which he went on to say he had attempted suicide and survived, thankfully, and was very grateful that he survived. But he just says that like it haunts him to this day, knowing that like at some point, he said it was as if I was looking through a door at the nothingness. I wasn't in it. I was still too conscious to get fully engulfed into it, sucked in, but it was there and I could see it. And he said, you know, it haunts me to know that like one day I will have to face go to that with that again and I will lose. Which is just a really sad kind of thought. But so I'll read some of these other stories though. So this one, these are all from Reddit. So this guy says, I was stabbed in the stomach with a knife by my uncle when I was 15 years old. His uncle, for context, is mentally ill. He says, I remember freaking out, lying on the floor, hyperventilating while I was bleeding out. I had tried to call up from my basement to phone 911, but was so weak, every time I moved, I started bleeding more. I remember passing out and having the sensation like I was leaving a dark room and moving outside into the sun. I stopped panicking, and this feeling of pure contentment settled over me. I was floating over a garden where all of the plants were giving off light, and I could see a huge amorphous shape above me that was made up of every color in existence, including colors I had never seen before and couldn't even possibly describe. The shape seemed familiar, like I was a part of it, and it was beckoning me and filling me with pure ecstasy and understanding as I looked at it. Then a man who looked an awful lot like Dream from the Sandman comics, which I was obsessed with at the time, walked over to me through the garden and told me that I couldn't go home yet, that it wasn't time. I started weeping, but I was filled with a feeling of understanding, like I knew that I had to go back despite not wanting to. The man had tears streaming down his face, and he took my hand and led me back to my body, which was in an ambulance. My older brother had found me and called 911. 4 years later, I experienced a kind of weak flashback or replay of the feeling I had while looking at the giant shape in the sky while I was on psilocybin mushrooms. It felt like I was intimately connected to every aspect of the universe, and that all things that could be known were understood intuitively in that state, like an all-encompassing answer to some divine question, but I couldn't put it into words or symbols of any sort. It just was all so obvious in that moment. I felt omniscient and omnipresent, but it was a shadow of the feeling I had during the near-death experience. I didn't have any religion in my upbringing. I've never been inclined to believe in any sort of organized spirituality, but those two experiences were so vivid and otherworldly that they have convinced me that there are dimensions to existence that are beyond our current ability to grasp in a tangible, scientific way. I feel like I had pressed my face up against some sort of veil and looked through a pinhole at something beyond imagining. People have told me that it's just the simple product of brain chemistry and that there's nothing spooky about my experience, but I honestly have trouble taking them seriously because none of them have actually experienced anything like it. I challenge anyone to have an experience like this and not come away highly skeptical about our current scientific worldview. There seems to be this undercurrent of feeling among some that we are rapidly approaching a comprehensive and objective view of reality, that science is in its twilight years and we were just tying up some loose ends. But my experience has led me to believe that the cosmos is much more mysterious than anyone but the most original thinkers are giving it credit for. I just like he wrote that so beautifully and yeah, and it's just really interesting that he even calls out like, yeah, my shrooms experience actually was, gave me kind of
similar
a into that again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Another one, so one of the other themes is, so there are some who see like loved ones or, like Dream from the Sandman comics or whatever, like comforting figures and characters. Others see, and I'm not to say like they're not comforting, but other people see kind of what other, like, there's not really another way to describe it as if like, other than like death, like they see death or some personification of death. And not that it looks scary, but this one I thought explained it well. So this is a story that someone's telling of a friend of mine. So a friend of theirs. So they said a friend of mine overdosed one day while doing drugs with his friend. The friend hadn't taken anything yet, so he wasn't, just imagining all the signs of death on this guy. No pulse, cold skin, blue lips, all of that. My friend told me that in those few minutes he was considered dead. He saw nothing but white. Everything around him was bright white, and in the distance was a dark shadowed tree. He then saw a woman, also dark and shadowed, so he wasn't able to see her face, but her presence made him feel happy. She held out her hand to him, and for a while he debated whether or not he should go with her. He decided not to, and she simply walked away. Then he woke up. Before that event, he defined himself as Catholic, but was never really religious. Afterwards, he turned his life around and started devoting himself to helping others.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Really, really interesting.
Yeah. I like both of those, they had a choice to go or not.
I think that's interesting too.
And
I don't think you always get a choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting that when it's like truly near death, it's a matter of like, do you want to fight to live or are you ready to go?
Right.
I included this last one because it kind of made me laugh, but also in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, do you remember the Cartoon Network show Ed, Edd and Eddy? Okay.
I do.
Okay. So this guy, I'm just going to say it's really quick. He said, still unclear if I was unconscious or dead. The doctor actually wasn't sure. I was around 7 at the time. I saw a light and it got bigger. And then I swear to God, Ed, Edd and Eddy appear. And they start dancing and music plays. And it was weird as fuck. But I swear that's what I remember. And then he comes to.
Whoa.
And there are multiple people in this Reddit thread that comment and are like, well, you know what the fan theory says, that Ed, Edd and Eddy all live in purgatory.
What?
There's this widely, and then I started searching it more and it's a thing. Like people are like, oh, that's what the show is, that there are these 3 dead children in an afterlife. And when you think about it, it tracks. Like you're like, wait a minute, like they didn't have parents.
Yeah.
Like they did like the most like outlandish shit. Like it was like otherworldly. They did like otherworldly things. And there's this massive fan theory that they're literally like dead kids frolicking in purgatory or the afterlife.
Oh God.
that blew my mind.
Yeah, me too.
I was like, what? And then he saw them, and like the OP, the original poster was like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Whoa. So I was like, oh my God, that's so weird.
That is really weird.
So weird.
Wow.
So weird.
Oof.
Okay.
I want to watch that show again now. I don't really remember.
I know, me too. I don't really remember it either. It just being so weird.
Yeah.
Like Cat Dog.
Yeah.
Isn't that the other one? And Courage the Cowardly Dog. That one was actually really scary to me when I was a kid. Yeah, so bizarro. Yeah. But anyway, weird. So I'm just going to touch on astral projection quickly. I just have a few, actually not that quickly, but classic.
Fast.
So there is a kind of two schools of thought. Some people believe that astral projection and lucid dreaming are the same. Others believe that they are two separate things. And I'm going to kind of lean towards that they're separate things because, well, someone actually does a really good job of kind of defining both and the differentiation. So I'm just going to read that.
Okay.
So lucid dreaming. This is what happens when you are asleep. You enter REM usually, and then you become aware that you are dreaming. Because you are dreaming, you are not in the real world. You can tell you are lucid dreaming because you gain partial or full control of the dream, i.e. of the reality you're experiencing. You can touch objects in your environment like normal, pick things up, open and close doors, make sexy people appear in front of you who want nothing so much as to tear your clothing off and have sex with you. You're in control. It all feels physical. You'll even enjoy the sex. And then in parentheses, she's like, I bet you can't guess what ended up happening in all of the lucid dreams I had as an adolescent. And then, if we agree that real magic creates real change in the real world, then this isn't magic. So it's like, it is a dream. That's it. Whether that's a reality imagined by your mind, whatever you imagine the dream world, a dream state to be, it is within that vacuum.
Yeah.
So astral projection, which is literally going, quote, out of body. This is what happens when you're awake, usually. You enter a trance, you create an energy body, you position your consciousness and leave some of your physical senses, and put some of your physical senses into the energy body, and you leave your physical body passive and dormant, maneuvering through the real world, our waking reality, via your energy body. You are in the real world unless you decide to plane shift, but that's a different thing.
Yikes.
You can look down and see your dormant body. It's almost as if you're a ghost. You can't lift things with your hands. You can't open doors. People usually can't see you or sense you unless, of course, they can normally perceive ghosts or energetic bodies. You can pass through walls and see what another person in the vicinity of your energy body is doing. Thereafter, you could return to your body, resume normal waking consciousness, and go talk to the person you were spying on about what they were doing because you were in the real world. Whoa. So that's obviously hypothetical, and it doesn't usually work like that for people. But they said before returning to your body, you can do real magic that affects the real world. So this is coming from like a witchcraft perspective in terms of like, doing magic and how that works. So there's no magic involved in lucid dreaming, according to this definition. There can be magic involved in astral projection, which is like if you watch Charmed, that's happening all the time. Because magic at the end of the day is energy manipulation, and you have the ability to manipulate energy because you are energy. You can't touch physical things. You can touch energy.
Yeah.
So that said, if you do magic, the theory is that you'll use up part of the energy that's comprising your body. So it'll weaken or deplete the energy body that you've created separate from your physical, like corporal form. Unless you bring your soul with you, which is a whole nother thing, or know how to reach back into your body to pull more energy out of it. So there are just so many layers.
Yeah, so many.
So many layers, but I just thought that was really fascinating the way she talked about it. So just like a quick story that, not even a quick story, but like a tool for how to induce it. Because, hypothetically, anybody can lucid dream, anybody can astral project. So sleep paralysis is actually, they say, a really great tool to induce lucid dreams and astral projection. I don't fully understand the lucid dream part. I feel like for me, it's the other way around. I lucid dream and that leads to
Yeah.
sleep paralysis and night terrors. But, I'm sure there's a way to like reverse engineer that.
Yeah.
The astral projection piece I get though, because you are in this like really unique state that, you can't, you're just in a really unique, like zoned out state. So I can see how you could kind of get yourself in that zone. But some people have like specific tactics for like being able to astral project. So what they say is this is like known and accepted as like a working strategy. You sleep for 4 to 6 hours, get up for an hour or so, and then go back to sleep with the intent to astral project.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that implies you have a lot of control over shifting between waking and sleeping.
Yeah.
But I find that very interesting. And like almost everyone is like, yup. A lot of people are blind when they astral project. So all of their senses don't come with them into their energetic body.
Right.
So that's really interesting. Some can, some learn to over time, but it's really, really interesting. So getting into a little more of like the layers of it. So according to those who practice astral projection, the astral realm is divided into different realities. So this gets into like parallel realities, but then separately, like dream state isn't a part of that, but maybe a part of that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like ambiguity in what people believe.
Yeah.
But so there are these different realities, one of which is closest to our own physical reality. In this reality, you may see things that concur with the physical reality, but also things imagined by those who inhabit the physical space or things that have been in that space, are in that space, or will be in that space. So it's a really interesting like alternative to this idea of a simulation.
Yeah.
That like, so if I have control over energetically removing energy from my physical body into a separate body.
Yeah.
We're connected by consciousness, but that's it.
Yeah.
Why couldn't I navigate to another dimension or another realm or another plane?
Right.
And from there, with nothing but energy, I and everyone are contributing. It's like an open source, like crowdsourced reality, basically. So it's like my energy leaves a mark there. So maybe if you astral projected into that same realm a year later, you'd see a glimpse of me there, or something that I brought along, whether it was an emotion or, something along those lines. Also, what we don't know is, are there other physical beings that exist there all the time?
Right.
And then they're also impacting the energetic reality we experience.
Whoa.
And also, can people astral project from other realities into our reality? Because that would actually explain a lot of the glitches in the Matrix.
Yes, it would.
So, mind blown. So when you get into, this is also from Reddit, when you get into the quantum world, reality becomes very weird, as this person defines it. Who's to say the reality we experience is the actual reality of the universe? We already know that our brains fabricate colors and other parts of our vision just based on how our brains function, but all of our senses do that. So our perception of reality could be largely fictitious, and we would never know as our senses tell us otherwise.
Right.
Which kind of, comes back to the simulation idea is like, scientific evidence, like, yes, I believe in science, so like nobody at me, like don't come for me. But if you do think about it that way, if you're thinking about like energy and like there being a greater source of energy in different realities and dimensions and realms and planes and all of that, our perceived reality is not necessarily like the capital R reality of our base reality, say, in the terms of the simulation theory. So this is really interesting because I'm going to end on this one because I actually have had a very like similar experience. Well, parts of it. So he says, when I was a little boy, I would hold court. I love how he says that. I would hold court sometimes with my parents, telling them all of my theories about how the world worked. They would indulge me and listen because they were very good parents. And then he said, I know, because I don't have that kind of patience. I was 7, sitting in our family caravan one sunny afternoon, explaining that a whole other layer of reality could be right beside ours, and that time might be malleable there. I distinctly remember indicating the empty space in the room and explaining that my future self could be standing there watching our conversation. I come from a Presbyterian but functionally materialist background, not a single whiff of New Age thinking in my upbringing. I don't know where I would have gotten that idea of this near Earth plane, or even why I would have been so certain that my future self could do such a thing. The whole picture of this wider reality just sprung up in my mind. Just an inspired leap, or maybe someone else was talking through me. I didn't learn about astral projection for another 9 or 10 years. And it wasn't until 14 years later that I first traveled in time in the astral plane. I haven't been back to that day in the caravan, but for poetic and sometimes perhaps continuity reasons, I feel it's necessary that I do close the loop someday. So I haven't astral projected. That's not the piece I relate to, but I have gone down those rabbit holes. Like when I was really little, imagining this concept of like nothingness, of other dimensions, of existence in this weird wavy vacuum that I quite literally can't put the image into words or explain it in a way that makes sense. But it used to bring this like overwhelming feeling of like dread, honestly, to me. And so it just was really interesting because I think the way that he is thinking about it, even as a child, is so, I mean, that's pretty fucking profound for a 7-year-old to be like, time might be malleable there. I doubt he used the word malleable, but you know, it's just really interesting. And I like that idea that he had, you know, maybe he sensed a future version of himself there and gestured to, and could, you know, because it's him. So of course he would be able to sense that energy more strongly than one, someone who's close to it, but two, someone who's not him. Yeah, I don't know. Like, and also if you're able to do that, so say his future self was in the room with him, could he, as a child, pull energy from that energetic body, or could that energetic body push energy onto him? You know, it's like, it's really, it's just like limitless. It's limitless. And that is really hopeful to me. Like the simulation shit makes me want to bury my head in the sand. But yeah, just full stop dread. Doom. Literally, I'm having a mental breakdown. But this alternative is like so beautiful and like expansive and like, holy shit. Like, I don't know, man. It blows my mind. It blows my mind.
I mean, my mind is blown that people have even astral projected. Like, I know. I haven't even ever considered that was possible.
I know. I kind of want to try. But then it also scares me. Like, what if you get stuck?
That's what I was thinking.
What if you get stuck on another plane?
How do you get back?
I don't know.
There's some research to do before we try.
Before we try that out. Wow. What an awesome, this was a really good topic. I'm really glad we did this one.
Same. I think there's even a lot more that we could talk about in a similar vein.
I think so too.
Like, including more about deja vu. And I was reminded when I was doing research today that deja vu has kind of an opposite called jamais vu, which is French.
Oh, never seen.
Which could be interesting.
Oh, okay.
And
I've never heard of that before. Okay, I'm adding it to our list. Okay. That's a good one.
Perfect. Wow.
We're taking a bit of a tangent next week, and we're going to talk about Oh, that video will be posted with you. Oh, shit. Well, wow. Ended on a high note, everyone.
Tune in next time to hear what that's about.
I love it. Well, shit, guys. Thanks so much for listening. If you made it this far, if you paused it partway through, totally understand.
No problem.
We wanted to deliver some extra content because I'm sure you guys missed us for a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, follow us on social, on FB and IG at girlsgonespooky. Please send us your stories. Please. I beg you.
Yeah. Please.
To girlsgonespooky@gmail.com. And last but not least, stay
spooky. See you next time.
See you next week.
Bye.